Okay, excellent. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Shay Stickle. I am someone who loves to learn, especially when it comes to the human body and how to be healthy. Go ahead and full screen this. I have studied the human body for several years now. I by no means see myself as an expert. I'm not a doctor, um, but I'm very passionate about understanding how the system works at the most fundamental level. That journey has ultimately led me to circadian biology. I believe that this is the bedrock of biology, and that's the reason I made this PowerPoint. I believe we need as many voices as possible spreading this message of our circadian rhythm as the most important aspect to human health. And I truly believe that nature, amidst all the trends, the supplements, the weight loss programs, all the fads, nature is what truly heals, and nature is what has always healed. And circadian biology is the most innate, um, timeless aspect to nature. So, yeah, I believe that with all my heart. I believe that with all my heart, and that's why I put together this presentation. Made this over the weekend, and we're going to present it. So, what is our circadian rhythm? Our circadian rhythm is literally just the clock that our body runs on. There are 37.2 trillion cells in the human body, with each and every cell undergoing an estimated 100,000 chemical reactions per second. You can do the math on that. Quite a bit happening in the body at once. So I think when it comes to our approach to health, we should ask, how in the world does the body maintain order amidst all of this chaos? How are we conscious? How do we have this gift of consciousness? How do we have consciousness? It's incredible, right? So the reason is because there's an underlying conductor of this biological symphony, and it's called your circadian rhythm. I wanted to note here that what I believe to be the highest marker of health in the organism, in this structure we call the human body, is coherence. And so that means our body's capability of communicating with itself, having the entire system synchronized, both internally and externally with the environment. That is what health is. It's to be coherent, it's to be orderly, and it's to be um, yeah, synchronized. So how does the timing mechanism work? How does this really work? You have a master clock in your brain. That part of the brain in the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN, receives light signals through the retina, and that light, this light and dark cycle, is then what entrains the rest of the body. So this part of the brain first receives light, and then that signal is transmitted to all your body clocks. So you have the master clock, and then you have body clocks. And when I say body clocks, that means your organs. So each organ operates on a circadian rhythm, but all these different rhythms are all synchronized by the master clock. So you have what's called a Zeitgeber, which means timekeeper in German, I believe. A photic Zeitgeber, which is by far the primary stimulus, the most powerful stimulus. And then you have non-photic, which means when you're eating, when you're socializing, when you're exercising, and everything else. So your organs can stabilize themselves on a rhythm independent of light exposure, but for the entire body to be coherent, you need the master clock to be synchronizing the rest of the body clocks, which happens through proper light stimuli. So the suprachiasmatic nucleus, yes, it synchronizes peripheral clocks, as you can see here. The SCN, it does this through three mechanisms, three methods of communication: neural outputs, hormonal outputs, and thermal outputs, with which the two first here are the most effective. Neural outputs, which means neurotransmitters via the autonomic nervous system, and then hormonal outputs, which means the SCN influences different brain regions that then lead to the production of specific hormones that travel through the blood and to each body clock, and that's how this process of entrainment happens. So as you can see here, light is received by the eye, it's processed by the brain, translated into these different signals, and then the peripheral clocks then downstream determine what genes are expressed in every cell. Here is a diagram of neural signaling top down. So you can see the SCN sends these neurotransmitters, projects glutamate and GABA to different areas of the brain. And that's all in response to light. So then all these different parts of the brain respond to the ultimate master clock. And then, as you can probably guess, all these different brain regions then control different peripheral clocks downstream. Here's hormonal signaling. If you know anything about the hypothalamus, the paraventricular nucleus plays a critical role in the release of hormones, and it actually receives information from the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So your light exposure through the eye controls what hormones are released into the bloodstream. And yeah, autonomic function as well is controlled by the paraventricular nucleus, the PVN. So you can see here I drew this red line because it goes from light to SCN to the PVN. Circadian rhythm, your hormones operate on the circadian cycle. You can see here cortisol and melatonin are antagonistic. These travel through the blood, and yeah, every cell in the body sees the same hormone. So this is how the entire body this is how the entire body stays in sync. Like I said, it's this symphony. This tract from the retina to the hypothalamus is called the retinal hypothalamic tract, the RHT. It has to work faster than every other clock. Think about it. If every part of the body responds to this signal, then this signal from the retina to the SCN has to work faster than the rest. And this is a principle Dr. Jack Kruse constantly refers to. It's kind of like the same thing about how your phone tells you where to go when you put in the address of a location, because there's a satellite in space that's working faster than your phone. And it's the same thing here. And that's why this part of the brain, the part of the body that tells time, that's why it's located in the brain, because it works top to down. And this is how the conductor works the symphony, synchronizes it all. So all these peripheral tissues you can look at as musicians. If all these clocks are operating independent of each other, they're all desynchronized, then the piece of music is going to sound horrible, right? But if you have the proper cues through the retina, the entire body knows what time it is, and it will be a beautiful piece of music. It'll be a beautiful symphony. Now, to cover this really quick for anybody who's into genetics and science, so you have genes, these 4 genes that are really the foundation of our cellular function, of all of our biochemical reactions. BML1 and clock, these are transcription factors. So they bind to DNA. Then these genes, all these clock genes, which include thousands of genes, are transcribed and translated into these proteins that then downstream control what genes? Thousands. Metabolism, DNA repair, cell growth, immune function, and many more. And then what controls the BML1 and clock transcription factor, which controls these genes? It's our light exposure. So our light exposure downstream then controls all these genes that everyone is looking to optimize through what? Supplements and diet and your exercise routine. It's all controlled by the timing. So then what happens then is the transcription and translation creation of these proteins, PER and CRY, they accumulate and then they move back into the nucleus and prevent BML1 and clock from binding. So PER and CRY will be higher as the day goes on, as the light present decreases as darkness arises. So then here, BML1 and clock leads to clock proteins. Those clock proteins then shut down BML1 and clock, and then the cycle repeats. So it's a transcription translation feedback loop. And this happens in every single cell in the body besides red blood cells, because they don't have a nucleus. Here's another simple diagram. These CCGs, these clock-controlled genes, then ripple downstream into virtually every system. So then we can conclude that, well, first of all, I wanted to show that the accumulation of the PER and CRY and then the degradation of PER and CRY, which I said Remember how they accumulate and then they prevent the AML1 clock from binding to DNA? Each of those processes takes 12 hours. So that means 24 hours, right? Our entire genome operates on this 24-hour cycle, the light and dark cycle, right? It's amazing. So yeah, then we can conclude that our circadian rhythm, it is the most important aspect to our biology. How important is it? It's the most important thing. This paper here, Sachin Panda, is a great guy. He wrote a book called The Circadian Code. Him and a group of researchers found over 80% of protein coding genes operate on a daily expression rhythm. And so that means that they all operate on a circadian cycle. Remember what I said about the body clocks. All those body clocks follow the master clock. So then that means that almost the entire genome is regulated by clock genes, which are controlled by the SCN, which is controlled by the light, primarily by the light we allow into our eye. Fascinating, right? So then, yeah, remember coherence is the highest marker of health, right? This paper found, as such, there's an additional level of complexity to circadian organization in mammals. To ensure daily coherence, this transcription translation feedback loop needs to be synchronized with each other and ultimately the environment. Coherence across the entire organism. And that means every day the body has to be synchronized if you want to be healthy, if you truly want to be healthy. So, how do I go back here? This was a paper that just showed, yeah, that circadian misalignment, which means our master clock, shown in blue, is out of sync, or sorry, the master clock is shown in red. It's out of sync with the body clocks, and that's caused by various factors. So the implications of this, of a poor circadian rhythm, is seen in almost every single form of pathology we see. Disrupt the circadian rhythm, causes metabolic dysfunction and obesity. This paper showed, among thousands of papers that show this, homeostasis of glucose and lipid blood concentrations are under circadian regulation. So that means you can eat the same meal, but at different times of the day, your body's going to respond to it differently, right? So you can have a nutritious meal for breakfast, right? But you have that same meal at 1 in the morning, your body's not going to be able to metabolize it as efficiently. You're not going to be able to absorb nutrients as well as you could. You're not going to be able to detoxify because your liver also detoxifies. And yeah, you could literally, this sounds absurd, but you could eat the same diet, but eat at the wrong times. And eating at the right times, you'll lean out. In the other, with irregular meal timing, you'll gain weight. It's crazy. All hormones operate on a circadian cycle. We know endocrine disorders are very common in society today. Like I said, I'm no doctor, I'm no expert in endocrinology, but diabetes, hypo or hypothyroidism, low sex hormones, and menstrual irregularities. Geez, I can't speak. These things are all extremely common, right? They all operate. Hormones are hormones, hormonal health, all is determined by our circadian health. So we need more people sharing this message, right? If you're an endocrinologist and you're watching this video, learn more about this, man. This is the foundation. All anti-cancer processes, circadian control, DNA repair, cell proliferation, cell apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, our immune system. All these things are controlled by the SCN, by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, by the master clock. Night shift workers have repeatedly been shown to have a significantly higher risk of cancer. And that's shown across many papers. And in this paper, I wanted to briefly touch on how even the DNA damage in the skin is repaired on a circadian fashion. So if you're getting in the sun and you're basking in rays, just like all of nature is, all of God's creation is, but then you're getting under artificial light or you're eating at the wrong times, your body won't be able to repair that DNA damage as efficiently. And you can see that, for example, people who have melanoma don't even get in the sun. That's why they get melanoma, on their toes and things. And so it's clearly all controlled by your circadian rhythm. Nutrient uptake and detoxification, like I said, circadian controlled. Gut health, the composition of gut microbes, circadian control. Both gut motility, which is food moving through the GI tract, and maintenance of the gut barrier, which is extremely important for immune function, for autoimmunity, and things like gluten sensitivities and things of that nature. That's all circadian controlled. So if you have poor circadian health, you have poor nutrient absorption, but you also have constipation and leaky gut, bloating, which is extremely common. Immunity, this operates on a circadian cycle. Sleep quality. Check out this woman here. This is most people when they go to bed, they have these lights on. It's crazy. How is the body supposed to know what time of the day it is? So this disrupts your sleep cycle. You have inadequate recovery. When you sleep, that's when your brain clears toxins through the lymphatic system, and then this significantly will increase your risk for neurological conditions. The WHO said over 1 in 3 people are now affected by neurological conditions, the leading cause of illness and disability worldwide, which we know if you have poor sleep quality, you will not be feeling the best mentally. Same thing here. Keeping rats under constant light, this paper found, induced both depressive and anxiety-like behavior. And could that perhaps be because our body can't tell time? Of course, it's going to make us anxious. An altered circadian rhythm is also commonly seen in people with severe psychiatric disorders. So is that a cause or is that effect? We don't know, but definitely alludes to the idea that circadian rhythm is highly important. This was a paper I did over the summer in my psychopathology class. One of the interesting studies, there were several that I included in this paper, but lithium is the gold standard for people with bipolar disorder. That's the gold standard for treatment. That was found to regulate circadian rhythm independent of light exposure. So, like I said, it's reinstalling coherence in the body. Bright light therapy, which is just bright light shined on people's faces, I believe, in the middle of the day, increased remission rate for bipolar patients as well as lowered rates of depression. And then episodes of bipolar mania were shown to be treated effectively with enforced darkness. So whether you had blackout curtains, or I wanted to note here for anybody who knows me, I wear blue light blocking glasses, like it's a religion. Blue light blocking glasses enforce darkness and were shown to be an effective treatment for bipolar patients. How about that? Crazy. So yeah, the takeaway. Hopefully I didn't throw too much information at you. I probably did, but I'm very passionate for this. I'm kind of on fire every time I talk about it. Circadian biology is not some fad. It's the foundational pillar of health. If we want to be healthy, we have to reinstall order. We have to solidify ourselves with proper timing, with the proper circadian signals. And that means primarily light through the eye. So you can see here, you have a building, right? You have a skyscraper. Everyone's focusing on the architecture, how the building looks, right? With supplements, exercise, and nutrition. But how's the foundation, right? Circadian rhythm, the foundation, the timing. It controls the flow of energy in the system. How to optimize your circadian rhythm, that'll be for a different video. I already wrote an article. I just finished it today. I will submit it. I will post it in the description of this video. And it's on Substack. It's free to subscribe. Subscribe to my Substack because I think I'll be posting some articles in the future on these topics of light, circadian biology, mitochondria. And yeah, that'll be in the description. So I wanted to conclude whether you are an atheist, whether you're secular or you're a believer in God, in whatever form that may be. I'm a believer in Christ. In Genesis, it said it right there, verses 4 and 5 in Genesis. Then God saw the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness, right? He called it light, or he called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And there was evening and there was morning, right? So metaphysically, spiritually, religiously, or like I said, scientifically, this light and dark cycle is the foundation of biology. All of biology. You can do your own research into these things. It's the most fascinating thing. All of biology operates on this circadian cycle. It's this light and dark cycle that is clearly embedded in all of life. And so I wanted to conclude here saying that light is the code for life and order. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying to the end. And yeah, stay tuned for more videos. I'm very passionate for these things, and I believe that this is how we improve our health as a collective, is bringing it back to nature. So, thank you for watching, and have a great afternoon. Have a great day.